Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk some more Stormlight Archive Book 5 theories. And because my last video on the subject has some terrible audio, I'm going to do a recap of those theories for this video in the beginning, and then we're going to move over to some of your comments that I got on that video. And then after that we're going to wrap up with my final theory thoughts on the last little bit of the book that we know about. So with that being said, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So, before we begin, let me say huge spoiler warning for the entire Cosmere and for all Brandon Sanderson's works, because these theories are probably going to touch on some crossover stuff and, some far-reaching stuff. So, just to be safe, let's say spoiler warning on all of it. So in the last video, I had three kind of four-ish primary theories, so I just kind of want to recap those really quickly. So my first one was Kaladin's arc. I think Kaladin's entire story arc ends in book 5 through either some sort of death or him actually going off into the sunset in some sort of way. So that's going to happen, I'm pretty sure, and I think a lot of people agree with me because Kaladin, honestly, we've seen his arc. It's at its conclusion, so it's not very surprising of a thought to have. And secondly, I was theorizing that Dalinar's training isn't going to be anything like he thinks, or like he talked to Shard about creating the Oath Pack and stuff like that, and like he needs help with his bondsmith powers and stuff. I don't think any the trip to Shinovar is going to go anything like he's planning. It's going to be he's probably going to learn some stuff by way of having to deal with crazy Zeth and crazy Ashar or something like that. So I don't think it's going to go in the way that he wants it to. So that's a kind of a light theory, but it's also fairly obvious. But I think the way it all plays out is going to basically have a domino effect. And that's why my third one is Zeth's fourth ideal is not going to go the way he wants it to, because I feel like the Shen have already been cleansed by Nail, and or no, not Nail, but Ashar when he went and took the the bondsmith honor blade. So I kind of think either he's going to have to like abandon it or reinterpret it or something like that, or we're going to learn more about the Skybreaker's oaths. Yeah, I think we're going to learn more about the Skybreaker oaths and the fact that they can be changed. So I think his fourth ideal is going to end up changing as a result. And it'll basically conclude with him no longer having Nightblood. So I think Zeth is like everything, basically everything's going to go sideways, and Zeth's going to lose Nightblood. And finally, I think Dalinar and the crew is basically going to have to leave Shinovar in like a hurry in order to get back for the Contest of Champions, because I just envision that entire situation just going sideways so quickly. So yeah, those are my general theories that I put in that video. It was very rambling in that video, so that was my quick little sum up of them. So let's talk about some of the comments that you guys left on that video. So let's start with Brian Cook's comment, and let me say right off the top, thanks a lot, Brian. I really like reading your comment, and I like reading all of your comments. So thanks a lot for joining in the conversation and getting involved. So Brandon has said that book 5 will be Zeth's books. I agree that he won't be carrying Nightblood by the end of the book, and I suspect that it will wind up with the Ghost Bloods. So Brandon has said book 5 is Zeth's book, and I agree won't be carrying Nightblood by the end of the book, but I suspect that it will end up with the Ghost Bloods. So let's stop right there at that little paragraph. I really like that idea. I completely forgot that he said that book 5 was Zeth's book, so that kind of actually makes me believe that they're going to spend a lot more time in Shinovar than we think. And it's going to probably, all of that's going to be a lot bigger deal. But I really do like the idea that you put here that the ghost, or that Nightblood will end up with the Ghost Blood, top blood and blood. That would be funny if Brandon did that on purpose. How cool would that be? Nightblood, Ghost Bloods. Oh, imagine Thetacar with Nightblood. How freaking terrifying would that be? Could Thetacar like cut his, or Thetacar could like Nightblood cut his connection to Scadrial and actually let him get off? Like, there's so many implications just in that entire idea alone. So let's keep going. This is you're probably right about Kaladin too. There isn't much left for him to do in terms of having an arc. What will be interesting is if Kaladin who sacrifices himself, but not who. Oh, if it's not Kaladin who sacrifices himself, but Syl, This would strip Cal of his powers, but leave him alive, and then he could truly become a healer. I kind of like that idea, but like it, it rubs up against me a little wrong because I don't like the idea of Syl being sacrificed. Like Syl can't go anywhere; she's too awesome. It was terrible. Like even in Rhythm of War, when they were saying when Moash was supposed to use the dagger to kill Syl, and he ended up killing the Tef's sprint, whose name I can't remember. Yeah, and I like this little paragraph too. It supports the idea of like a potential Kaladin, walking off into the sunset kind of ending, but the whole idea of Syl being sacrificed, I hadn't thought of that. I probably did it on purpose, wouldn't think about it because I don't want to see Syl go. I need her to stay around forever and like become like she's the ancient daughter already, so she should technically have like all kinds of authority amongst the other honor sprint or something. But I admit that that's feel like a possibility, but I really don't want her to go anywhere. Um, so next, the real interesting plot thread for me is, of course, Dalinar and his contest of champions. Yes, as it is for all of us. What will be? I have no real idea of whom Odium will choose as his champion now that Moash has been blinded, and I think Moash will get a redemption arc in either the next book or the next half of the series. But I think, so let's stop right there. I was leaning towards that too until the blinding thing happened too. I was like, well, Moash is the obvious choice, especially, race, Odium. But I don't know if it's directly like a, obvious choice for Terravodium. So the idea that it could become Zeth under Terravodium, I like that a lot too, and I agree with it. But the idea of Moash getting a redemption arc, while yes, I can totally see Brandon trying to do that, and like Moash getting pulling the influence of Odium off of him, and like accepting his responsibility. All this kind of going through a more drawn out version of Dalinar's arc in the third book. I can kind of see that, but I don't want it because fuck Moash. Moash is horrible. I don't like him. If anybody can do it and make me believe it and accept it, it's Brandon. But at this moment, fuck Moash. Yeah. So yeah, let's continue talking about the Zeth thing. You have some bullet points here that I really like. So Brian says, "Hey, Zeth was close to snapping and going full cuckoo banana pants, going full nuts, and also losing the ability to control his passions, which was true. Totally, when he fought Kaladin in the storm, he was not okay. And like even in Rhythm of War, Odium or Teravangian before he became Odium was still pushing his buttons and messing with him, making them all confused and stuff. Probably just dicking around with his trauma that he gave him. So that's really good evidence in that favor. And then you got B. He could be tempted to let Odium take his pain, which he probably could because the way he came back and was stapled back to his body and stuff, he still has all the trauma, all the pain, and all this kind of stuff. But he seemed like, at least in the stuff we got in Oathbringer, I thought he was getting to the point where he was trying to, deal with it himself and all that stuff. Confront it and, take a page from Dalinar's book and all that stuff and, like, accept his pain and try to get over it and all that kind of stuff. But Rhythm of War kind of gave us a little bit of a backslide because of the way he was manipulated. So we go to letter C. I like this point, saying that Zeth may have a connection with Odium because of Teravangian. Like maybe through that influence, it creates enough of a connection that he probably could. Similar to like how in Mistborn, how Sazed developed a connection with Ruin because of his grief over losing Tindwyl. So maybe that works. It's consistent Cosmere logic. And this, I really like this one. I really like D because it kind of goes into my like soupy thoughts that I have about the idea of the Skybreaker oaths being more malleable. Like you're saying that he could lose his fealty to Dalinar as a result of swearing the fourth ideal. I kind of think that's possible because I do feel like their oaths like trump each other, like especially by the time they're fifth ideal and they become law. So like that would supersede anything that they said before, I would imagine. So it kind of makes sense. So that's why I kind of lean towards the idea of his fourth ideal changing, and as a result, it changes his third ideal. or because of everything that goes down and like he goes more cuckoo banana pants, that like it like causes that, or just in general, kind of like you're saying, because he becomes Terravodium's champion, it basically erases his third ideal. It may even break his Spren bond entirely, to be honest. So that could be interesting, and that would be like a real good juicy storyline for book 5. That's basically going to be a cliffhanger to the back half. So I actually really like that. So I'm leaning more towards Zeth being the champion now because of this. And yeah, I agree with what you say too, that he will be somewhat obvious. Like your last line says, so Zeth will make a somewhat obvious but logical choice for Odium's champion. Like, it feels kind of obvious for us, but like, I don't know if you all like listen to a lot of Brandon's live streams or hear him talk in general, but the way he writes, he kind of does this on purpose. He prefers for it not really predictable or obvious or anything like that. He prefers to be able to write the story in such a way that you can see where it's going, so that you're not necessarily surprised, but you're surprised by the way it happens. So like, you know, because you can follow the threads that he's putting out there, and that's kind of what he wants you to do. So I don't know if this is a case of, oh, this just feels very obvious, or if we're properly following the breadcrumbs and like pulling on the threads in the way that we should. So like, that could even be a potential spoiler. I don't know. I just really dig this idea of Zeth being the champion, and then like just pretty much all hell breaks loose as a result of it. Because like I said before, I'm terrified of Terravodium, and I just know that he is so much more manipulative and more conniving than Race ever was. And it's like, this is like, Brandon wouldn't have had Terravodium become Terravodium if it wasn't going to have Cosmere-wide ramifications going forward. So he's definitely going to be a big deal back 5, which it has so many implications. So let's continue. So let's continue reading Brian's comment. He has some more thoughts in here that I just really like. So, in his final theory, he says, which I think is really only way it can go, is that Dalinar lose the contest, which I agree with. Not only that, but somebody, probably Adolin, to whom Dalinar will pass his bond with the Stormfather before he dies, which I think I like that idea, but I don't really know how that works. We haven't seen, you know, bonds be passed on to anyone. Or maybe he could just become the next bondsmith. Or maybe, you know, Navani, because she was kind of a side character, now she's becoming one of the main characters. Maybe she just takes over all bondsmith, you know, responsibilities or whatever. So, and we will see him losing the fight and try to help, thus forfeiting the contest and freeing Odium. Now, Dalinar, so yeah, this is the part, I really like about your comment. It says, now Dalinar will be remade as a servant of, so it says Dalinar will be remade to serve as an avatar of Odium and further his plans throughout the Cosmere. The only caveat I have for this is somehow Taravangian decides that he owes Dalinar some kind of mercy for being his friend, even while being enemies. That part right there, like that, not like that whole thing. I love the idea. Because so okay, let me like get my thoughts together a little bit. Getting really rambly. So this idea of Dalinar losing the contest, right? So before Taravangian took over as Odium, the idea of Dalinar becoming a fused, to me it felt very possible, and because the way the contract went down and everything felt like the scale got smaller, it's just a matter of, you know, keeping Alethkar, getting Alethkar, and like dealing with the actual fuse that are fighting with her. Like the stakes of it aren't as gigantic as I would have expected, which tells me that the ramifications of this are going to be a blip in contrast to the major events of like the back 5 or something like that, or the series, you know, obviously the series as a whole. But what's got me thinking is so basically that line of logic has me thinking that yes, Dalinar will likely lose. Terravodium will do something similar to what Race was originally planning and like make Dalinar some type of fused, and he will become like either, if not like, you know, just a harbinger of death and destruction across the Cosmere, he will probably be like Brian was saying, like Terravodium's avatar, and like doing something like that, probably against his will. And maybe Taravangian sees that somewhat as a mercy, that he doesn't just have him being full evil Blackthorn the way Race would have had him doing, or something like that. See, I agree with that idea primarily because in one of Brandon's live streams, he said that he had multiple options for the end of Rhythm of War. Originally, he wasn't going to actually kill off Race and have Terravodium ascend. I mean, and the reason why he said he did it is because the relationship between Taravangian and Dalinar is so much more, dynamic, and like they're basically frenemies and all this kind of stuff, and like so he wanted to pull out that relationship and make it have a greater impact, for the back five. And if that was his reason for having Taravangian ascend to Odium, then that means that Dalinar can't go away. Dalinar has to become a part of that that continuing story. So that tells me that Dalinar has to lose the Battle of Champions, and he has to become some sort of cognitive shadow or something to that effect, and keep going throughout the Cosmere. And because of Theta, we have precedent for that entire idea now. So, but that kind of gets me hesitant, because I feel like Brandon, like while Brandon doesn't sidestep things for the sake of sidestepping them, I think this is one of the things he would like avoid doing, because it's so repetitive of something else that we're just now getting information for. So it leaves me to think maybe it's something completely different, which kind of excites me, because I'm like, this is really well thought out, I think, and it feels very logical. So if it's something completely different, I'm like, that's going to be fun, because it's going to be completely out of left field. So, and your last little bit, it kind of goes into what I was just saying about like Theta and all this stuff. And so this is where we, get majorly into like crossover spoilers. So I'm just going to go ahead and use, other book names. So just in general, the spoiler warning's up anyway. So yeah, Kelsier is Theta. So Brian is saying his last part of his comment is that since we know that Kelsier is still a heavy shaker and also has an avatar, can we assume that he has taken possession of a shard by this point? Maybe that one shard that just wants to survive. I like this thought. So the idea that Kelsier has taken up a shard by now, and potentially is that shard that wants to survive or whatever. I like that idea, but because of words of Brandon and things I've heard him say on different live streams, I'm pretty certain that's not the case. He said I can't remember what he said. I wish I would have found the video. But like he said something to the effect that no, that's just not the thing. Like Kelsier can't take up another shard for reasons of being locked on Scadrial. And the avatars, like he's not a shard, so he can't make an avatar the way I think it's Autonomy who's doing avatars. Like he can't make that, but I kind of like the idea. I think somebody on 17th Shard, I was watching one of their videos, and someone was saying that like Kelsier, being who he is, he wants to, and he ascended for a little bit in Secret History, so he probably has an idea about, avatars and stuff like that, but he can't, make a splinter of himself, as an avatar like Pop G or something like that, Pat G, however you pronounce that island, or something like that. So you would think like Kelsier being kind of brash and a little arrogant, full of himself, he would use terms like avatar to equate himself as a god. But in reality, it would probably be something more similar to like the Spren box. But knowing Kelsier, he would probably find somebody with light weaving abilities or a conjurer or something like that, and they would shapeshift into him and then probably throw a Sion on top or something like that, something like that. So I like the idea of an avatar, and I do think he has multiple avatars out there, but I think they're bootleg avatars. I don't think they're proper shard created avatars, because I don't think he has a shard. Because also, I think it would be really difficult, because for one, we don't know what shard that is, and Brandon said there is no shard of survival, because for one, that's redundant of preservation. So the one that's out there in the Cosmere that wants to hide and survive, we also got a word of Brandon that basically says that it's not Whimsy, which a lot of other people were speculating it could have been Whimsy. But Whimsy apparently has a planet and has a distinct magic system. So that's interesting. Like, holy crap, what does that mean? Like, what planet and what magic does a shard like Whimsy create? Can't wait to see that. Hope we get a novella or something. So the idea of Kelsier being a shard, I kind of disagree with, mostly because of what Brandon has said, and like I really don't want him to start throwing the shards around like everybody. You get a shard, you get a shard. I really don't want that. That's why I always was kind of against the idea of Dalinar becoming honor, like properly becoming honor. I never really cared for that. I wonder how that connection will really work. Like, say if it is like another shard of, I don't know what of the shards that Brandon mentioned in the part 2 and the interludes. the ones that were in those letters, like of those, like I can't really think of any of those that would literally like to run and hide to survive. Whimsy probably wouldn't do it because on whimsical nature or whatever. Like the one he said I don't know, like maybe Mercy would, because Mercy knows that like Mercy would be like because I kind of interpret Mercy like Mercy wouldn't be very helpful because Mercy would want to take Mercy on Odium and not get rid of him and all that stuff, or like will want to maybe Mercy without the proper context of God is like somebody that's like kind of crazy and wants to have everyone at their mercy. So maybe they want power, or maybe they understand that Odium is like their proper antithesis or whatever. So I don't know, maybe it's something like, I don't know. But the idea of him connecting to one of those shards and being able to take it up is interesting, because I don't know how it will work. Because even to take up preservation for that short amount of time, he had to take, that globe of pure preservation connection magic, or however that works. And like, well, I mean, based on that, he could probably do it again with another shard, but it feels overly complicated. But who knows? Maybe that could be like in a different version of Secret History where something like that happens. I'd be down. So yeah, that's the end of Brian's comment, and thanks a lot for leaving that. I liked it a lot. There was a lot of fun stuff in there to pick apart, and I really appreciate it. Continue leaving those comments, and this video is going to be, the major repository for all our theories going forward, at least until some more Stormlight stuff come out, and I got an excuse to do some more theory crafting. So let's move on to the other really good theory comment that we got coming from Rid Ghost. So what Rid Ghost is saying is, I feel like Kaladin will say his fifth idea in the fifth book, which we all agree with, and Brandon doesn't tend to do strict sad endings. Like, yeah, he hasn't done too many, just full on downer endings. At most, he'll do like bittersweet. But he loves bittersweet. So I can definitely see him killing off Kaladin in some amazing epic OMG so cool way, where Stormblessed submits himself as a legend. Like, exactly, that's kind of where I was going with the idea of him basically sacrificing himself for creating this new oath pact, because I feel like Brandon could do a very huge OMG that's really cool, emotional kind of thing. Like I was saying before, I think, well, I don't know, I feel like my theory about Kaladin and Moash arc being an emotional arc kind of got shot out the door now. Or maybe it'll be like a two damaged soldiers recovering and kind of understanding each other better during that recovery kind of final arc for them, or something like that. That would be weirdly bittersweet, and like that would, see, my brain just tangents and then I just kind of ramble, and it just kind of, yeah. But yeah, I can kind of see something like that where, like, so regardless of how it happens, I think we all do agree Kaladin's arc ends book 5, and he will cement himself as the Stormblessed, and it will become, like, by book 10, people will still, sing the praises of Stormblessed, and hopefully it's not just 30-year-old Renarin, like, my bridge leader who, leader of the bridge I never actually had to carry was such an awesome guy, or so, nothing like that, though. So let's continue to see what Ridge Ghost continues to say. All right, so in this next little bit, he says, I can't see the Oath Pact being the solution to their problems. It's too temporary. I think Dalinar will fail, and the remaining protagonists will have to come up with a new solution to the Odium problem, rather than trying to deal with the guy in the Mafuba style. Let me just call that last part out right there. Mafuba, great Dragon Ball reference. Just major credit for that off top. But I agree. Like, I was thinking about that too. Like, the Oath Pact, just the nature of it, I think I even said it in the other video, like, it wouldn't work in the same way, because they have the Everstorm and like all of this other stuff. They have multiple other ways to get back to Roshar, so it's not the same thing. So it would either have to be a totally different type of Oath Pact, just using the label, or something else entirely. Like, so it feels like it, I agree. I don't think it's really going to go in that direction, but I feel like that's going to be the thing that they're trying to do when it all starts to fall apart, when everybody goes crazy in Shinovar. And again, like, Ridge here agrees with Brian. He said, I think Zeth will become Odium's champion. He is the best fighter that Taravangian knows. true, and he will somehow manipulate him into it because he was manipulating him all through, even in his dumb state when he was all emotion and no like cunning intelligence and stuff. He was still able to manipulate him a little bit, which is kind of terrifying to think of how his brain works. If when he is like dumber than normal, he can still manipulate and play on people's emotions, because that means he's learning when he's in his highly passionate points. He learned how to play with other people's emotions because he came to understand emotions. That just makes him a much more terrifying odium. So it's like, maybe it's crazy. Yeah, I like the idea of the symmetry too. You say here, like the symmetry of Szeth killing both Gavilar and Dalinar. Like I like that symmetry, but I don't think that's really going to happen. I think Dalinar is going to be done on Roshar, but I don't think he's dead. I think I'm really leaning towards something like what happened with Kelsier, really. But, you know, like I said earlier, I think Brandon might sidestep it, and if he does, I got no clue. And I like this idea of Szeth killing Gavilar and Dalinar because it plays more into the idea that the Skybreaker oaths are very different. Like the Lightweaver oaths are quite different than, everybody else's. But maybe they can renege on previous oaths or recontextualize them or something like that. So I think this is a decent way for Brandon to kind of explore that, if that is the case. If he does, let him kill Dalinar. And then Rich starts to talk about the experiments, which is one of my favorite things. And I really like this point that he brings up here. He says, those experiments are definitely super important. If Kaladin does live, I think Syl will get brought into the physical world and turn into his love interest. So I like that idea. Mostly, like, it's so funny with me in this whole Syladin situation, because looking online, apparently that's a thing. Like, that's a legit ship, and I didn't know anything about it really. So like, in Way of Kings, that was kind of where I was going. Like, I kind of thought about it because he needed somebody like that to lean on, and he was like so so vulnerable and needed. And I was just like, it just kind of felt natural in my head. I was like, okay, well, they could end up like together in some kind of way, however that would work, or something like that. But then it kind of went away, and I was like, because I haven't seen anything like that. There's not many fairy human, companion type relationships would actually end up together. The closest thing that ever happened, at least that I've seen, is in Hook, when Tinkerbell she made herself human sized and was implying that she was in love with Robin Williams' Peter Pan. So like, that's the closest thing I've seen to that situation. But it probably exists in other medium that I'm just ignorant of. But so because of that kind of influenced me. So during Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, I kind of just let it go a little bit. But in Rhythm of War, when they started comparing their trauma and talking about their like pain and all this kind of stuff, I was like, holy crap, they might work well together. Like, they understand each other better than anybody ever could understand them. Like, even the freaking Stormfather, like Syl's dad doesn't even understand where she's coming from the way Kaladin can. So if these experiments do work, and it's a way to get cognitive shadows back in the physical world, then maybe we can bring cognitive entities, because we have anti-investiture. For all we know, like, say, as Ashar is trying to pull a Spren to the physical world, like if he's humming anti-investiture or something like that, or like, or something like that, some kind of, maybe there's got to be something with anti-investiture plus intent that can probably peel off a layer of their investiture that will allow it to translate, like their clothes and their physical part will allow it to translate better into the physical world. Maybe they can, like, the same way when like when Pattern comes through and he's just a small little pattern instead of his full form, or Syl is like little or something. Maybe something can happen with that and make it possible. But I don't know. I don't know the mechanics of how it will work. But I feel like Brandon, I don't know. Brandon also kind of just does this kind of stuff, and he didn't seem to realize he was doing it until people brought it to his attention. Like, similar with Shallan. Like, Shallan is bisexual, and Brandon didn't realize it until other, like, readers had pointed it out. Like, Brandon, you notice the way Shallan describes women is very much like she's into them, and like stuff like that. And then, like, he makes it really explicit with Vale in Rhythm of War, and she starts hitting on women and stuff. And then, like, so he was talking about that on one of his live streams. I think when he was on 17th Shard, he was talking about that. I was like, holy, that's something I didn't know, I didn't pick up on it at all. I mean, in the first book though, every time she describes Yasna and she's like drawing Yasna, I picked it up there because she very much described Yasna the way I would. Like, so I kind of picked that up, but I didn't. So it was really interesting. So the idea of Kaladin and Syl together, I feel like that's another one of those things. I don't think Brandon has really considered it, but once he sees it, as obviously as he kind of accidentally put in Rhythm of War, then I think he might like go in that direction in some way or the other. But I really hope it doesn't like influence what he's already doing or anything like that, you know? So we'll just have to see, I guess. And Rich kind of wraps up here with his general thoughts, and I completely agree with this too. Says the problem with theory crafting is these books are so large. It's like trying to predict 2 books in advance. Exactly, I so agree. That's why it took me a while to make these videos, because I'm trying to think about like, there's just so much that could happen. There's so many little things you could theorize about. So it's trying to keep it to the bigger stuff, you know. He continues just saying like he could write pretty much anything in 1,400 pages, completely, exactly. That's why I'm like, the idea of him sidestepping something like with Zeth and everything, do something totally different. Like he totally could because he's Brandon. So, Rid has some Rid Ghost has some other you know, small little theory things. Let's read them off here. Says random other predictions. Some of the protagonists will travel to Braze and find out more about the Surges. I like that idea, but we're kind of learning that Surges is just kind of a generic term. Surges just means the fundamental force of any world or any area, basically, really. It just like Surge binding is just a generic magic term now. It's not even, you know, proper. So I think it would be cool because I think, yeah, doesn't Braze have like a disease-based magic system or something like that there he was talking about? I don't know. So maybe, I like that idea of them going to Braze. Maybe that could happen. But I personally don't think it'll happen in book 5. That'll, you know, back 5 kind of thing. Also he's saying anti-Stormlight will use to physically harm Odium. I don't think so. Because the amount, you would have to have an anti-investiture size shard. It would have to be so much. Because like even the perpendicular, like it just, I don't think it's very likely, but who knows? I kind of like the idea. I like that direction though, because anti-investiture has to get used though. Like it has to, you know, we got to do something with it. Like so, apart from just, you know, having the option of permadeath. Corrupted Spren, such as Renarins, are not bound by the oaths and have more freedom with the Surges. The experiments used to bring Spren to the physical realm will bring Syl into human form. Just some guesses. And I really like that. I like the idea that, yeah, I agree, like I said in your previous point, I agree the idea that maybe the experiments will somehow help Syl get out into the physical world or something. And maybe that'll be like a workaround to dealing with the threat of anti-investiture. Maybe that could be a thing. I like that idea, actually. Maybe we could, yeah, I like that. And like, so that'd be pretty cool. So thanks a lot to Brian Cook and Rid Ghost for your awesome comments. And I love your theories. Please keep them coming. So let's move on to my last little bit of cluster theories. So I'm going to ramble through it because this video is already so long. So let's get right into it. So my last remaining few theories that I have about Stormlight 5 and just pretty much the Cosmere going forward is going to revolve around a few characters. It's going to I'm going to talk about Rlain and Renarin, then going to talk about Then I'm going to talk about the Shallan Theta whole situation and all that stuff. So I don't have too many theories remaining, but let's get into them. So, Renarin's book, I can't remember for certain, but I think Brandon has said before the Renarin book is going to be one of the last. Like Yasna's book probably is going to be like book 10 or something like that. So I kind of think in the back 5, like when Brandon, or when, so actually let me go back. So something similar to the whole Syl and Kaladin thing that went way over my head, and the Shallan being bisexual thing that more or less went over my head. The Rlain Renarin thing went so far over my head. I felt like a moron. I was so confused because somebody mentioned, it was in a live stream or something, where Brandon was saying that Renarin has a crush, and like we don't know who it is. And then he said later that like Renarin asked when he was talking to the other Spren, the other enlightened Spren, he basically said he's got another person for them to bond, and Brandon was saying that he was going to, you know, get his crush as Spren bond, basically. So Rlain gets the bond. So Rlain is Renarin's crush. So And I don't know if Brandon's confirmed that it, they both like each other or whatever, but like I think that's the implication. So we're going to get a interspecies, uh, different bonded enlightened spren bonded power couple. Like it's really cool. Like it's so funny because I mean on what he was saying in 17 Shard on the stream in regards to this, he didn't want to make it like dramatically explicit and make it like the whole crux of these characters. He didn't want to like, because Renarin's also on the spectrum and stuff, so he didn't want to like equate those two things or anything like that. And so he had other issues for not making it dramatically explicit, and it also just didn't fit into the narrative of Rhythm of War, which I understand because that story really didn't have any space for love stories or anything like that. But I really dig that idea. I think it's really cool. Like it gives me such like from Marvel, from the comics, it gives me like Wiccan and Hulkling vibes. Like it reminds me of that entire thing. Like there's a point in the comics where Hulkling and Wiccan got married, and Hulkling became like the monarch of the Kree and the Skrulls, and like united those species. And Wiccan was basically like the space sorcerer supreme. Like it kind of feels like that's where they're going. Like maybe Rlain becomes like the leader, de facto leader of this listeners or something like that, and then Renarin potentially takes over Dalinar's bond with the Stormfather or something like that. But he becomes like the de facto leader of the rest of the Rosharan humans, and the listener Rosharan alliance that's going to happen, that they're going to have to deal with all the Terravodium's nonsense that's going to have like Cosmere wide reaching stuff. So I think that's really, really cool. I didn't think about it. It feels like it almost feels like, how did I miss it? And like, it's really cool, and I really want to see what's going to happen, because I think Renarin, because we're like, I agree with what Rich Ghost was also saying before about the idea of them having looser ties to their oaths and stuff like that, because I think it'll probably be a nice little blend between what the Fuse can do, the way they can internalize their surges, and also use them explicitly in the ways that the Radiants do. So based on that logic, because any hybrid basically makes stronger. You combine anything and it just becomes better. So that's going to be epic. Like I can't wait to see what happens with that. So that's one of my favorite things going forward. I really can't wait to see the relationship and see how amazing they become. Like, because it's going to be epic, and I know there's so much potential for Renarin. He's going to be cool. Just the idea, like, because Brandon, even in Rhythm of War, he only showed him do one cool different thing one time, just to making balls of light and stuff like that or whatever. I'm like, that probably, like, that ability in and of itself is probably so much more than we already see it. So it's like, I'm just getting excited. All right, I'm getting excited. Let's move on. And the last real little bit of theory stuff that I have is revolving around Shallan. Everything, like I said, there's so much more to all of this. There little theories will probably trickle in as time goes on, but my real big area is Shallan. So I really think the Shallan and Adolin thing. So this is where part of me kind of supports the idea of Adolin becoming a champion, or getting involved with the Battle of Champions in some way, because I personally think Adolin and Shallan are either going to separate or break up in Book 5. I think the fact that we didn't get to see the conversation when Shallan told him everything about the Ghost Bloods and all this kind of stuff was done on purpose, because I don't think Brandon would have just kind of left that conversation out for no reason, especially when we get that whole, like, him taking her up there to see the star sprint and all this kind of stuff, and like do all of this to very much try to make her feel better and pull her out of herself. Like, that was a small, intimate kind of conversation moment that Brandon showed, but he wouldn't show the crux of the tension in their relationship the entire time. Like, one of her biggest issues, and something like that everybody's kind of lifted their eyebrow about Adolin, like, dude, you should be questioning like all her lies, and you should, something like that or whatever. So I kind of feel like that's going to have some ramifications going forward. So I think they're either going to break up or have to separate, and either she's going to leave both Spren with Adolin so that Adolin can help Testament become like a regular Spren again, or something like that. Or something's going to happen to break her connection enough so that she can get off of Roshar, because we all know Shallan is going to become a world hopper. We don't really know how, but it's got to happen. Either something like they find the connection issue and figure out a way to take Pattern with her, but I don't think Testament is going. I think Testament is going to stay with Adolin and stay on Roshar. But either way it go, my main thought is that Shallan is leaving Roshar without Adolin. She's going to be a world hopper solo. She's going to pull a Vivenna and just be off there doing some other stuff. That's honestly what I really think. And I think Adolin's life has been basically charmed and nice, and he's been too well rounded so far. So something's going to happen that's going to like cause all kinds of problems. Potentially, like it could be, you know, the way Brandon cuts back and forth between story arcs. We could be dealing with stuff in Shinovar, and then he cuts over to what's going on with them, and then maybe they break up, and then it all causes issues, and it leads to Adolin being a part of the contest of champions or something like that. So, like, I don't really know how to play out, but I really don't think that they're going to stay together. There's something about the relationship that feels off, and it feels like, I don't know, because Adolin is overly forgiving, and he's always had relationship issues, and he doesn't seem to be an active part of his own relationship, in my opinion. Like, he seems to be, like, it's like he was given something, and he's not going to give it away or do anything else with it, so he just kind of has it. Like, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I don't know. Something about the relationship I don't think is going to last. I'm probably wrong, and a lot of people that really liked them together probably hate me for it, but I know the people that wanted Shallan and Kaladin together are probably right there with me. So, yeah. And I think potentially all of this is going to be figured out when we get Ba-Edo Mishram back. I think that's where all the dead eyes are going to probably be recovered, so Testament will probably be recovered enough to, you know, talk again and all this kind of stuff. Because of the nature of their connection to Odium and all this kind of stuff, I wonder if they have greater ability to move around within the Cosmere. Maybe they're not, you know, so locked, and maybe because they were in the gemstone for so long, they don't have any proper connection. So maybe they could world hop, and then Shallan could connect with Ba-Edo Mishram and jump off or something like that, or like something like that. I feel like Ba-Edo Mishram is going to come into effect and like save all the Spren. They're no longer going to be dead eyes. That's not going to be a thing anymore. And so I think that's going to be one of the main threads for the back five. Like, there will be no more dead eyes, but all Spren are capable of permadeath. I think that's going to be one of the big things that Brandon kind of like plays with throughout the last bit of back five. So this video has already gone way too long. My raw footage is counting over an hour now. So I'm going to wrap this video up here and remind you guys to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who left a comment on the video, and the comments letting me know that my audio in that video was terrible. Luckily it lined up right with me getting this new mic. So thanks again to Brian Cook and Ridge Ghost for your comments, and I really like your theories. Please keep them coming. And as I already said, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.